Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Greco. I'm one of the regional sales managers here over at Foundation Software, and I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. Today, we're going to talk about how Foundation Software can automate your certified payroll reporting. Now, before we jump in to the software, just a kind of few things to go over before we jump in. Pretty much everybody that's attending today is in mute-only mode. So as we go through the presentation, we'll be talking about various areas of the software. And if there are questions, there should be an area within your GoToMeeting login that would allow you to key those questions in. And at the end, I'll do my best to kind of go through all those questions with the time that we have permitted. And just kind of some other things before we talk about the certified payroll side. For those that don't know who we are Foundation Software. We're a construction accounting system. We've been in business since 1985. Our whole business model, product, company is geared around construction accounting. And certified payroll has been one of the things that we've done extremely well since our inception. So everything that you see within our software is going to be very construction specific, including obviously other areas like AIE billings, change orders, work in progress. But today we're going to be specifically talking about certified payroll. Kind of how we come into play is, for those that have, maybe something like an off-the-shelf system like QuickBooks or something that doesn't provide you with automated certified payroll, we tend to work with those companies, bring them completely into Foundation Software from an accounting perspective, and then obviously give them all those benefits that we have to offer, including the certified payroll. Now, with our system, we also have a sister company, Payroll for Construction, which is a payroll processing company. So for those that use that service, this is kind of more of a look at the accounting side, which you might be still doing those certified payrolls there. But we want to talk about all the different options that Foundation has in terms of how we can better streamline your ability to produce certified payroll. Typically, what we see is those that use systems such as QuickBooks or off-the-shelf systems, those certified payroll reports become a very manual and tedious process that requires you, whether you're in payroll, ownership, admin, to do those manually, right? So, the downfall of doing those manually is not only that it takes a lot of time, but then it also leaves a lot of room for error, which, as we all know, one of the last things we want to do is make a mistake on a certified payroll. So, by leveraging a construction accounting solution that has them built in, obviously it saves you a ton of time in having to do those manually, and then also alleviates that room for error. Now, with the system itself, it's very conducive to construction payroll. It's really why the system was built, right? So we talk about, who is the, optimal client for Foundation, and that's going to be what we consider the labor-intensive contractor. Certified payroll being one of the things that people really cringe when they have to do that manually. And with our system, before we talk about how they look or how they come out of the software, I also like to talk about how that information gets there, right? So what does it take for us to be able to produce these? What does it take for us to even manage projects that have multiple pay rates or multiple unions? All stuff we do extremely well. And if you look at the system itself, it's a very simple, clean layout, right? So we don't want to click 100 times to navigate through the software. And most important is there's always a rhyme or reason of especially when it comes to prevailing wage payroll or certified payroll, of where these things go in the system. And I like to always start with all my demonstrations talking about the job, right? I always say that we wouldn't need certified payroll or we wouldn't need prevailing wages if it weren't for the job. So there has to be a logical way of entering that information into the system so that end result, we are automating those pay rates. We are automating those fringe calculations. We are allowing the system to produce these reports for us. So we are able to use the job as a big tool here that when we create jobs, that's pretty much the gist of it, right? When we set up a project in Foundation, you have a job number and then a project name. Now, there's other features of Foundation that we won't discuss today, but obviously, if people want to dig a little bit further, we're always welcoming live demonstrations that cover the whole platform. And that kind of revolves around, obviously, some other fields that you see here, maybe like customer or project manager, retainage, all of which, we want to have in one solution. But as it relates to certified payroll, the job is going to be the driving factor here. And when I set these projects up, there's a simple checkbox here that tells the system whether or not I need certified or I don't need certified payroll. Now, what's nice about Foundation is, let's say I'm setting a project up, I'm entering all the necessary information, and for whatever reason, either I don't know that I need certified payroll or I just simply forget to check the box. That is not the end of the world. I could process one payroll or 10 payrolls, and I could easily go back into this job record, recheck the box, go run my certified payrolls out of Foundation, and all that information would be there for me. So it's something nice that at the initial job setup we can check that box, but if we forget to, it's not the end of the world. And obviously, there's more that we do, tracking multi-state payroll, multi-state workers comp, but then as we talk about certified payroll, one of the more complicated things are the pay rates and the fringe calculations, which we want to do out of the system. We want to completely eliminate you having to do that stuff manually, either on a spreadsheet or having to hand key in pay rates. There's always a rhyme or reason. I look at the job being a determination sheet, right? When I bid this job, I was awarded this job. I was notified that it's going to be a scale job. Now let's go ahead and attach that scale to the project. So by doing this, this is going to allow us the ability to attach a prevailing wage rate scale as well as a fringe scale. And if we have multi-trade payroll, whether we're, one day the guy's an operator, the next day the guy's a laborer, that's all tied to those pay rates and fringe rates. So it completely eliminates someone in payroll from having to manually key those pay rates in or even do the fringe calculations. I've attached it to the project, and I always say if the individual can select the correct job number, those pay rates, those fringe rates will be automated for me. So it's always one of the nice sides of Foundation where, as you see, a lot of the tabs here, a lot of the setup screen is construction specific. So it gives us an ability to do that complicated payroll as well as automate that to save you a lot of time. Now, in addition to just the system itself, we won't get into it today, but I always do like to mention it. We do have our own mobile timekeeping solutions. So, how can we completely shrink that multi-day process of payroll? One option is definitely, leveraging technology in the field, where we have an excellent product called WorkMax, which would allow people in the field to code their time. And since we have these jobs already created in the system with the corresponding pay rates, it alleviates them having to know what pay rates they have to use, and it also alleviates payroll knowing what pay rates they have to use. As long as we can pick the right job number, again, all that will be automated. To kind of give you a glimpse of how we track it, now, not to say that manual time cards are everything that everybody wants to do, but for those softwares that say they can track multi-rate payroll, I recommend asking them to show you. Which I'm going to do here, where, if this was a manual time card that I was entering into the software, I'm able to code that time to a project. I'm also able to code that time to a cost code. So now when we start talking about labor tracking outside of certified payroll, now we're getting into some more reporting features of being able to do budgeted job costing, estimate versus actual, and really getting into not only just, hey, what job did you work on, but what cost code were you working on as well. Let's say the individual came back to next job the next day, and maybe he was a foreman. And then maybe he went to a different job, performing a different task. Same thing. Next day, he was a foreman. This is pretty much all we need, right? So we need them to code their time to a project, cost code, tell us how long you were working, and if you did change classifications, let us know. And just by doing that, when I save this time card, this is going to populate all those different pay rates all in the same week. So by us setting the system up and attaching those pay rates to the job, this allows the system to process multi-union payroll, multi-prevailing wage payroll, multi-state payroll, with just simply putting information at the job record. Now, in Foundation, we look at the payroll process as a very logical payroll process, right? So, we shouldn't be alarmed of time that's in the system, we should be able to review time that's in the system and see those multiple pay rates well before we even think about producing a certified. So you'll notice with Foundation, there's an easy ability for us to come into the software and see all the time that lives in the system. And whether that came from WorkMax, our timekeeping solution, or just time that we've entered in, even just from a review of time, we're getting to see those jobs, those cost codes, those pay rates. So we're able to see that well before we even process payroll. Now, also with Foundation, it is a software that if you process payroll in-house, it's very capable of doing it. So it's out of the box. It's going to be able to produce paychecks, direct deposits. We do even have some HR products that would allow employees to review their stubs, request time off. We even do get into some onboarding too as well. So it's a complete, cohesive list of products that all integrate with our accounting solution. Now, once that payroll goes out the door, we've reviewed the time. We've ensured that everything is accurate. So as a result of that, we should be able to easily go into the software and produce either a paper copy certified or even electronic format. These should come directly out of your accounting system. This, once again, shouldn't be something that I'm having to manually do through, let's say, an LCP tracker portal or manually key into Excel only to populate a PDF. We have every format that you could think of that pretty much exists in the United States from the electronic side. So for those that need the California DIR form, what are the various Ash to Where forms, LCP tracker, EMARS, ePrism. Our goal was, if we're going to say that the system can produce certified payroll, let's go as far as producing the actual files for upload rather than require our customers to go into these websites and plug that stuff in. So let's say I need LCP tracker. I go in, I put my standard, time frame of a week, and now if we notice down here, it's going to actually prepare the correctly formatted file for upload to LCP. And that would be the same with EMARS, Ash to Where, California DIR, which are all various different formats, which are all programmed in the system. Now, if we do need one of the paper copy formats, that is something that we can also produce, in which, just like the electronic formatting, we have every version of certified payroll, state-specific and government-specific, that pretty much exists. And obviously, these have changed over time. So our ability to be in an industry that we get great feedback from our customers, we come in and we program these different formats when they do change, hoping that we have every format that you would need. Once again, going back to that, it should come out of our software. Let's say, for example, I need the U.S. Department of Labor format. That should come directly out of the system. That shouldn't be something I need to manually key in. And this is going to streamline that process tremendously, where I'm no longer having to hand key stuff in, hand calculate everything in. It's a direct byproduct of me just doing payroll out of Foundation. It'll also include the signature sheets too. So we look at it as one cohesive certified payroll report, whether that be electronic or paper copy. Now I'd like to open it up to questions to see if anybody has any questions. Like I stated in the beginning, there should be an area within the GoToMeeting player that you would be able to key those questions in. And then as they come in, I'll go ahead and answer them with the time that we have left over. Our first question is, do we do multiple live demonstrations? Yes, absolutely. So from our side, we look at evaluating accounting solutions as something that does take time, right? So, we're open to doing hands-on, live, one-on-one demonstrations, whether that be with yourself or your team. We can go through every module with you, obviously talk about pricing, implementation, all of which are done in-house. Our second question, is there a way to add multiple unions to a job or only one? If it is union payroll, it is something that really one of the main reasons why the system was originally created was for a contractor, heavy union contractor that worked in multiple unions. So it is something that we do exceptionally well, and it's been kind of one of our strong suits from day one, where we typically deal with possibly union contractors that might be going into different jurisdictions, and that could be based on the state that you work in, or like in Ohio, if you go up to a different county, potentially you might be in a different union. So just like the certified payroll format, there has to be a logical way of doing this too. And we look at it just like when we talk about prevailing wages. The reason why we might need multi-union payroll is because of the job, right? The job lives in a different jurisdiction, so we might need to send or report to different unions. Same thing with certified payroll. This union tab can also be used not only just for non-union certified payroll, but for multi-union payroll, where I can take this project and, let's say, for example, our home union is local 461, but because this job's in a different jurisdiction, they might need to report to local 127. And you can also, control at the job level, who gets what, meaning, does the whole deductions and fringe package get reported back to 127, or possibly maybe just the fringes? Or I'm even able to go in and select specific deductions or fringes that possibly need to get reported to 127, where the rest would go back to 461. That too could automate the pay rates, as well as obviously the union calculations. Now, if it's something that I might be, I might have electricians and maybe laborers on a job, I could point this to a different, I could say this is my home local for laborers, but they need to report to this local. Maybe not the right example here, but you are able to have multiple unions on a job, as well as multiple what we call home and away unions. Next question. When choosing prevailing wages, you showed is under the union tab. Is that regardless if you have a union or not? The union tab itself is just something that I have in my system. So if you're a non-union client, you can actually change the description here to say certified payroll, which, obviously union companies, they would probably have that tab that says union, but there would be an area within the software where I could say, I want that to say certified payroll instead. You could check that box, and instead of it saying union, it would just say certified payroll. Next question, how can I enter additional text into the signature sheet that explains the different deduction codes? So those deduction codes can come from a couple different areas. They can come from, obviously, when we create for a union company, this description here, but also too, when it comes to benefit types. Benefit types is really what those descriptions that pull into that signature sheet. So if you were, going through an implementation and creating those benefit types, all that information that I put as a description here would then populate to that report. Can you put schedule, pay raises, benefit changes for a future date? For union companies, yes, or same with prevailing wages. What you'll notice, and we leverage the same table in the system, which is this pay rates table. And one key feature of the system is this effective date. So if it's related to certified payroll, prevailing wages, or it's related to union payroll, technically, if I know what those rates are ahead of time, I can front load those tables in here, which is something I highly recommend. and it's smart enough to know actually based on the date worked what pay rate should be used in the system. Let's say for example, rates change on July 1st. So I have two tables in here, one with an effective date of July 1st, 2024, and possibly in that pay week, a guy or gal might work, June 29th, June 30th, and July 1st. It's smart enough to know to use the prior period, and then on 7/1 use the current pay scale or pay table here. So there is a way to do that on the pay rate side for prevailing wages and union payroll, and the same would be for deductions and fringes. You'll see that same field here, where if we know the benefits change on July 1st, just like our previous example, you can front load those tables in as well, and it would know what pay rates to use and also what benefits and fringes to use based on those dates. Now, there would not be, one of the questions is there a way to duplicate what is entered in the union tab to another project, or does that need to be entered in? It would need to be entered in. There wouldn't be a way for me to say, actually, I take that back. I would be able to come in here, and if it was something that I have in here and I copy it, if there was any tables here, they would, in essence, copy and paste from a previous job. Next question is going to be, where do we add trades? When you go through your initial implementation of Foundation, it's very important for us to walk you through, obviously all of this, right? So being able to teach you how to set up a job appropriately, obviously teach you how to set up the union side, and that would include also creating trades. I always say, if it's something that is a setup piece, when you think of setup, think maintenance. And when I click on that maintenance area, there'll be an area where I can create those specific trades. And obviously, we would walk you through that during your initial implementation. And I'll leave it open for a couple more questions before we wrap up. Yeah, to see a live demo of Foundation, you can either contact me, Tom Greco. My email address is tjg@foundationsoft.com. Or, we do have a toll-free number, or even you can request a demo from our website. We can then set up a time with you and go through this in a lot more detail, obviously talking about other modules as well. What does multi-state payroll look like? I think it really depends on the company and how you envision handling the multi-state. One way is obviously, when you create an employee record, you can put a state at the employee level, and if it's always based on the employee, that's an easy add it to the employee record. It'll always take that state. But if it's based on where they work, that same reason why we need certified payroll, retainage, multi-rates, the job, right? So the job being in a different state could require us to withhold taxes in multiple states. So as we create these jobs, There's an area that, let's say, for example, this is a New York job and I want to withhold New York state taxes, or it's an Ohio job or an Oregon job. I can point that job to the appropriate state withholding. And once again, as long as people are picking the right job number, it's more than capable enough of handling the multi-state calculations. Same thing with local taxes too, yes. So if you work in a state that has city taxes or county taxes that are involved, that is also something that, if it is something that's, let's say, a Strongsville job, that's a city tax in Ohio, actually where we're located. And, just by creating that group here and attaching it to the project, it's not only going to do the state tax correctly, but it also calculate the city taxes as well. Will it do workforce reporting? Um, Workforce reporting that I've seen is typically more of like the minority compliance side. Uh, and that might not be what you're asking, but it is something that I commonly see. So if it is something that needs to be, like a minority compliance report, maybe the federal format, and there are some state specific ones, you can obviously produce those, just like certified payroll. You'd be able to produce the paper copies out of here, as well as all the electronic formats too, which there's a couple that exist, and obviously if more come up, we would be programming them in the software. But if it's the workforce reports that we need to do, and we might need to potentially upload that to EEOC compliance, those two should come out of Foundation as well. Yeah, we pretty much have every format you could think of, federal, some state specific ones. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's attendance today and all the questions that came in. I hope, our meeting today kind of gave you an idea of how Foundation can automate your certified payroll reporting, and obviously much more. If you are anyone interested in looking at a live demonstration, like I said, you can give us a call, or you can even schedule a live demonstration through our website, or reach out to me at any point in time. If there are any questions too, also too, please feel free to reach out to me as well. My email address is tjg@foundationsoft.com. I'd be more than happy to answer any and all questions that you have. And once again, thank you everybody for attending. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.